Most senior cruisers have no idea they're missing out on perks quietly built just for them. These aren't flashy upgrades or loyalty rewards. They're subtle, often unspoken benefits cruise lines offer to guests over 65 or 70. From cabin placement tricks to priority treatment you won't find in the brochure, these little-known perks can seriously upgrade your trip without you ever paying extra. After years of cruising and swapping stories with seasoned travelers, I've uncovered 15 insider perks every senior should know. Let's dive in and transform the way you cruise forever. 1. Quiet cabin upgrades based on age and loyalty. You won't find this printed anywhere, but many senior cruisers, especially those over 70 or with past sailings under their belt, get placed in surprisingly prime cabins. We're talking midship, near elevators, close to dining areas, even if they booked a basic room. It's not labeled a senior perk, but cruise lines understand that comfort and accessibility go a long way with older guests. I remember once booking a standard interior, and without asking, I was bumped to a quieter ocean view cabin midship, just a short walk to breakfast. A travel agent later told me cruise lines sometimes strategically assign seniors to these spots to reduce fatigue and improve satisfaction. It's subtle, but once you know, you start noticing. Always make sure your profile mentions your age and loyalty status. And if you have mild mobility preferences, noting them in advance politely might just be the nudge that unlocks a better, more convenient cabin. 2. Unlisted early boarding assistance. If you've ever stood in those long cruise terminal lines, you know how exhausting they can be, especially after a flight. What many older travelers don't realize is that you can often bypass all that with quiet, unlisted early boarding assistance. Cruise staff are trained to spot older guests, especially those looking fatigued or using a cane or walker, and gently guide them toward a shorter, faster line. I've seen it happen firsthand. A couple in their late 70s looked overwhelmed at embarkation, and a crew member discreetly invited them to a quieter check-in zone. No elite status, no wheelchair, just a little empathy. While it's not guaranteed as a perk, many staff go out of their way to reduce stress for older guests. If you're struggling or just need a smoother path, then don't hesitate to ask a crew member at the terminal. A simple, polite question can save you an hour of standing. 3. Discrete priority seating at shows and lounges. Cruise theaters and lounges fill up fast, especially for popular shows or evening performances. What most seniors don't know is that ushers are often quietly instructed to assist older guests in finding better, more accessible seats. You won't see any senior section signs, but if you arrive a little early and look around, maybe with little hesitation, someone might approach. On one sailing, I watched an older lady wandering near the top of the theater steps. But before she could turn back, an usher gently escorted her to a front row seat in a roped-off area with no stairs. She didn't ask, but she didn't need to. These little kindnesses are not accidental. They're part of the unspoken cruise culture around older guests. My tip? Arrive 10 to 15 minutes early, make eye contact with the staff, and don't be shy about accepting help. You'll likely enjoy a more comfortable seat and a better view without saying much at all. 4. Personalized dining table assignments. Dining on a cruise isn't just about the food, it's about the experience. And cruise lines know this is especially true for older guests. While younger passengers may prefer the buzz of a large shared table, seniors often value quieter settings, the scenic views, or just good company with similar interests. What many don't realize is that the maitre d's often take subtle cues like age or solo travel status to personalize table placements. I once met a lovely solo cruiser in her late 70s who had been placed at a window-side table along with 2 other solo senior ladies. They weren't strangers for long. They dined together every night after that. It wasn't a coincidence. Cruise dining staff quietly curate these matches when they can. If you have a preference like quieter tables, earlier seating, or avoiding large groups, mention it politely on the first evening or even during booking. Chances are they'll go out of their way to make it happen. 5. Gentle onboard wellness checks. One of the most underappreciated perks for seniors cruising today is the subtle behind-the-scenes attention from the onboard medical team. While ship doctors aren't running full hospitals, they're often incredibly attuned to the needs of older passengers. If you mention a heart condition, recent surgery, or even mild concerns during check-in or at the medical center, it's not uncommon for them to quietly follow up without the formal appointment. I once had a fellow traveler in his early 80s mention a dizzy spell at the gym. Next morning, a nurse discreetly checked in during breakfast just to make sure he was feeling steady. It wasn't overbearing, it was thoughtful. Cruise lines know that proactive care reduces emergencies and builds trust. If you have any health history worth noting, inform your travel agent or guest services early. You might find the staff becomes a little more watchful in the best possible way without ever making a fuss. 6. Free or extended wheelchair loans. Cruise lines typically say that wheelchairs are for emergencies or port days only, but if you're over 70 and suddenly find yourself struggling with mobility, things work a little differently. On a Caribbean sailing I was on, a man twisted his knee on day 2. He didn't bring a cane or anything, but when he visited the medical center, they quietly arranged a wheelchair for him. For the rest of the cruise, no rental fees, no paperwork, just support. Seniors often receive extended use of manual wheelchairs without the standard restrictions, especially if their issues temporary or unexpected. The staff understand that mobility challenges can pop up at any age, but they're especially sensitive when it comes to older guests. Don't be afraid to ask at guest services or the infirmary if you find walking becoming uncomfortable. Even if you didn't pre-book a mobility aid, there may be one available, quietly and compassionately offered to make your cruise more enjoyable. 7. Soft concierge support without the suite price. Concierge service is usually reserved for those staying in suites or top-tier rooms. But here's something cruise lines don't advertise. If you're a senior cruiser, especially with loyalty status, you may quietly receive concierge-style treatment even without the upgraded cabin. I've seen guest service bookings personally reserve specialty dining spots, adjust excursion bookings, and even help guests navigate confusing onboard apps, all because the passenger was an older traveler who looked a little unsure. Once I watched a crew member notice an older couple struggling to connect to Wi-Fi and not only help them log on, but also arranged their show reservations for the week. It wasn't a formal perk, just the staff going the extra mile. If you're over 70 and feeling overwhelmed, don't hesitate to stop by guest services or the loyalty desk. Ask your question clearly and kindly, and you might get a level of personalized support you didn't even know was possible. 8. Unadvertised discounts for seniors. Believe it or not, some cruise lines still offer senior discounts, but only if you ask. They aren't publicized the way they used to be, and they won't pop up automatically during online booking. But guests over 55, 60, or 70, depending on the cruise line, can sometimes unlock better rates or added perks just by making a phone call or checking with the travel agent. I once booked a 10-day sailing for my mom and casually asked, "Do you offer senior rates?" The agent paused, then quietly gave a $200 discount per person. It never even showed up online. Some discounts may apply to excursions, drink packages, or onboard credits too. The key is asking early, ideally during booking, and doing so with a smile. If you're flexible on sailing dates or cabin categories, there's even more room to save. Cruise lines want to keep the older guests coming back, so don't be shy about it. 9. Special excursion pacing for seniors. Excursions can be one of the best parts of cruising, but also one of the most tiring. What many senior travelers don't realize is that guides often adjust pacing based on who's in the group. If they see several folks over 70, they might add extra water breaks, shorten walking distance a bit, or allow more seated moments during the tour. I joined a walking tour in Greece where a couple in their 70s looked hesitant. Quietly, the guide rearranged our route to include shaded areas and kept a gentler pace. No one complained. In fact, we all appreciated it. If you let the shore excursions team know in advance about any mobility preferences, they may steer you toward more accommodating tours or even alert the guide ahead of time. It doesn't mean you'll miss out. In fact, it usually means you'll enjoy the day with far less stress. It's all about making the adventure fit you, not the other way around. 10. Access to gentlemen hosts and social companions. This one's mostly seen on premium or luxury lines, but it's one of the most quietly delightful perks for older travelers. Gentlemen hosts are on board to dance, play cards, chat over drinks, or even join a trivia team. They're often advertised for solo female travelers, but many seniors, couples or not, can enjoy the company. I met a group of older friends cruising together, and one of them mentioned how they casually asked the cruise director if a gentleman host could join their daily bridge game. The next afternoon, there he was. Charming, friendly, and happy to fill in. These hosts aren't just dancers. They're social connectors, trained to help older guests feel welcome, relaxed, and engaged. If you're traveling solo or even just looking for a bit of companionship in an event, don't hesitate to ask. A quiet word to the social host or cruise director can often open a door you didn't even know existed. 11. Priority tender boat boarding. On itineraries where the ship can't dock directly and uses tender boats to ferry passengers ashore, the process can get hectic and honestly a bit overwhelming for older cruisers. But here's the quiet truth. Seniors, especially those who look like they could use a little extra time or space, are often given subtle priority. I've watched crew members gently guide older guests towards shaded waiting areas and then escort them on to early tenders without making a fuss. Once during a port stop in Santorini, I was with an older couple who seemed unsure where to go. A crew member approached and simply said, "Right this way," bypassing the entire crowd. No wheelchair, no VIP badge, just courtesy. It's not officially advertised, but the staff are trained to look out for those who may need help. If you feel anxious about standing in long lines for tenders, don't be afraid to speak up. You'll likely be offered a more comfortable option. 12. Tailored meal prep without an extra cost. Dining staff go out of their way to make meals special for all guests, but seniors often receive a quieter level of customization that others don't even notice. Whether it's softer foods, smaller portions, low-sodium alternatives, or even off-menu comfort items, older cruisers frequently get their needs met with zero upcharge. I met a woman who'd recently had dental work and quietly mentioned it to the maitre d' on the first night. From then on, the kitchen brought her custom versions of the entrees, pureed soups, steamed veggies, soft fish, without her needing to ask again. They even surprised her with a dessert she mentioned missing from a previous cruise. This isn't listed as a perk, but chefs know how important comfort and nutrition are for older guests. Don't wait till you're struggling. Speak with the dining staff early on. You'll be surprised by how gracious and accommodating they are, even if you're not in a specialty restaurant. 13. Quiet airport transfer help. Embarkation and disembarkation days are notoriously chaotic, especially when airports, hotels, and shuttle buses get involved. What many senior travelers don't realize is that the cruise staff often provide quiet hands-on help during transfers without needing to request special assistance in advance. I once watched an older couple juggling multiple suitcases at a busy port. A crew member stepped in, tagged their bags for priority loading, and then personally escorted them to a quieter shuttle bay. No formal service, just awareness and kindness. These moments aren't listed as perks, but they happen more often than you'd think. If you're traveling alone, feeling rushed or overwhelmed by the crowds, don't hesitate to ask a staff member for help during your transfer. Cruise lines want your final impression to be smooth, not stressful, and they'll often go the extra mile for older guests to ensure that. A quiet word can turn a frantic airport morning into a calm, well-managed experience. 14. Private lectures and enrichment clubs for seniors. Cruise lines are famous for poolside games and karaoke, but that's not everyone's speed. What many older cruisers discover is a quiet layer of programming. Intimate lectures, history talks, discussion circles, and enrichment sessions that cater more to seasoned, curious minds. They're rarely advertised as senior events, but if you browse the daily planner closely, you'll find them tucked away, usually in smaller lounges or libraries. On one sailing, I stumbled into a classical music appreciation session that turned into a cozy hour-long conversation about opera. Most attendees were over 65, and the speaker made everyone feel like VIPs. These sessions are a gem, offering slower-paced, meaningful engagement away from the crowds. Don't skip over the quiet listings in the newsletter. Ask the cruise director if there are any guest lectures, specialty workshops, or recurring discussion groups. If you enjoy learning while traveling, this is a perk that can transform your afternoons at sea. 15. Personalized celebration surprises. Seniors celebrating milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, retirements, or even a first cruise post-retirement often receive discreet but meaningful surprises from cruise staff that most passengers never see coming. While younger guests might have to book a premium package or pay extra for special treatment, older travelers frequently find these touches offered quietly as gestures of respect and appreciation. I remember meeting a couple on a transatlantic voyage celebrating their 50th anniversary. They hadn't mentioned it to many people, just a note at booking and a quick mention during check-in. But one evening, they came back to their cabin to find it decorated with gold streamers, fresh flowers, towel swans, and even a chilled bottle of champagne waiting by the balcony. No charge, no announcement, no fanfare, just a thoughtful surprise that made their cruise unforgettable. Cruise lines know that older travelers bring not only loyalty but life stories worth celebrating. These personal touches aren't always advertised, but they're part of a deeper cruise culture that values connection over spectacle. If you're marking something special, don't keep it to yourself. Mention it when booking or to guest services early on. You might just unlock a memory-making moment that becomes the highlight of your whole trip. Cruising as a senior isn't just about slowing down. It's about unlocking a different kind of experience, one filled with comfort, care, and quiet perks that most travelers overlook. From surprise upgrades and priority seating to personalized meals and thoughtful onboard care, these are the little things that can turn a good cruise into an unforgettable one. And the best part? You don't need to be in a suite or a loyalty program to access them. You just need to know they exist, and sometimes all it takes is a kind word or a quiet question at the right time. If you found this video helpful, give it a like. It helps more people discover these hidden tips. And don't forget to subscribe for more honest, experience-based advice made just for senior travelers. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What's one cruise perk or experience that took you by surprise? Drop it in the comments below. Safe travels, and I'll see you in the next video.